Hello again. This is the second podcast now from the team, the t teacher learning team, from the website teacherlearning.org. My name is Nick McDonald. I've been a teacher for um, 15, 17 years, and I've been in industry prior to that. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself again?
Yes. Hello there, everyone. I'm Michael Bird. I have worked predominantly in education throughout my career. I've done about 25 years now in schools, all shapes and sizes, abroad, at home. Currently, I work in higher education, and teacher education, teacher training is a passion of mine.
It's indeed a passion of a lot of people
Yeah.
in the country as a whole, I would say, in the UK in particular. So today we're going to look at emergent practice and why this is so important. So I think we should start with a definition of emergent practice. Is that something you can give us, Mike?
Yes, and I would urge people who, I'm sure they've heard this term before, but if not, there are a number of posts on the teacherlearning.org website which certainly discuss notions of emergent practice. I think it's just the attention that I know all teachers pay to what children actually are learning. I mean, the sort of really fascinating thing about emergent practice, for example, is when children learn things that teachers really don't intend, and we know that that happens all the time. The most sort of egregious one, the one that pains me perhaps more than anything, is that issue that children quite often, after 4 or 5 years of primary school and then more years in secondary school after that, they grow to really hate certain things. Now, I know not all children are in this position, but quite commonly they will learn to hate writing, for example. They will learn to hate doing maths, for example. And again, I'm going to caution this by saying that I'm not saying it's a majority or a minority, but it's a significant number, of pupils who learn to hate those subject areas and those exercises. No teacher intends to teach that. No teacher intends to make children hate their subject. So why does it happen? What is that? Why would anyone hate the opportunity to express themselves, in writing? It just seems it's a slightly odd phenomenon, which I know a lot of people have done a lot of work in and tried to get to the bottom of. But that's what I mean by emergent practice, is that there's an emergent practice, i.e., that children are not particularly fond of doing these things. They don't particularly enjoy it. They don't value it. They want to try and get out of it, and they put all their energies to trying to get out of it. Why does that happen? That's an example of an emergent practice, something that goes against what your intentions are, but seemingly, no matter how hard you try, it doesn't seem to do anything.
Children often, I mean, not many children um, go into school with an active intention to not learn. Um, well, not many in my experience, that's for sure. So
Yeah.
what is it that's causing them to disengage? Then, I mean, I have some experience as well, but from your experience, what is it that makes them disengage?
Well, I have a slight difficulty with the term disengagement, because what it often is
Okay.
taken to mean is that children are just not engaging in what the teacher wants them to engage in, and that's defined as disengagement. Actually, what is most commonly happening is that the children are finding things more interesting to engage in than what the teacher wants them to engage, and whatever that is, whether it's, you know, being on their phones, message passing, you know, deliberate disruption, you know, all of those things, or just truanting, getting, you know, trying to sort of, I don't know, flirt with other pupils, or whatever, you know, that there's just so many other things, you know, that are in a pupil's mind, and that therefore a teacher going on and on and on through a load of PowerPoint slides is often going to be a lower priority, you know, than the thing that's currently present in their mind. I mean, it's interesting looking at what happens. I mean, if there was a post I did, you know, quite a long time ago now, entitled "What is Planned and What Emerges." I mean, I do think there is a fundamental need for teachers to explore the interaction between the planned and the emergent, and not to see it as a simple sort of machine-like system of inputs and outputs. And
that means to explore, or to maybe even reflect upon the differences between what a teacher has planned and what the children in the class actually do. Is
yeah, that's right, and there's some fascinating, I mean, you know, I drew attention in that post, it's just simply called "What is Planned and What Emerges," to you know, workplaces in the past that have been infamous for their sort of drudgery, you know, and I'm thinking particularly of the car manufacturing plants in Detroit, and the you know, obviously the assembly lines as they were set up, with all of the individual workers doing the same repeated process over again, because they were basically following a blueprint, you know, for how to construct a car, and that car would gradually assemble as it went along the assembly line. But but you see, the thing that was important to those workers was not the constant repetition, you know, of the job. The thing that was important to those workers was what happened to them when their minds wandered, you know, from the drudgery of this job. And of course, what we know are incredibly important cultural phenomena of those factories is, of course, the musical compositions of the Motown movement. And you can hear in, you know, all of those sort of Motown songs and Motown beats and rhythms, you can hear the machinery, you can hear the belts turning, you can hear the hammering, you can hear the welding, you know, you can hear this sort of industrial sort of factory noise, all harmonically sort of put together into these screeds of music. And of course, people you know, who became famous artists on the Motown were themselves, you know, often had been in the assembly lines in the past. And it's just fascinating how that's happened. No manager, you know, or leader of any of the you know, motor car manufacturing plants intended for that to happen, or could even have predicted that would have happened. But it's a wonderful example of what does happen when you force people to do drudgery, is that their mind wanders, they do something else, and they will, and that will always be the thing that will be more significant to them, you know. Why wouldn't it be?
That applies directly, of course, to the classroom situation.
Yeah.
If the pupils in the class don't see any meaning, or don't, or the meaning is there, even it could be there, but they just don't see it.
Yes. Yes.
So what is the consequence then of not paying attention to the difference between the planned practice that a teacher might really put a lot of effort into, and the actual emergent practice? What happens when you don't pay attention to that, and why do we not pay attention to it as much as we ought to?
Well, I think the danger of not attending to what emerges is that you then just focus on what you plan, and that becomes what you regard yourself as being accountable for. And this just, I mean, there's a sort of seductive, controlling, you know, attractiveness to that, because you do have control over what you plan and the resources that you put together for your lessons. And let's say somebody, perish the thought, provides you with a blueprint for how you must plan your lessons and how you must do your lessons. Well, then it's simple, isn't it? It's a simple task, really, to make sure that your lesson plans comply. And then if you can prove that they comply, then you can absolve yourself of any sort of threat, because you're compliant. But the problem is that if you can't ignore what the children are actually learning from what you're planning, and if you do, well, then you won't know anything about what the children are doing. You won't know about how they're making sense of the material. You won't really understand how to respond in your future teaching to what children appear to be engaging in, and you'll probably maybe even willfully ignore it.
Well, that seems to be the definition of professionalism. A professional is somebody, professional practice is improving all the time. So I think it was Dylan William who said the goal of a teacher is to fail a little bit less each day. So let's just start from with this isn't going to be perfect, and let's just try and move forward by reflecting on that practice. I think that's what you're saying.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And teachers have to be aware of blueprints, because
well, they do, and
they're everywhere. And
that actually brings us to sort of a question. A question you mentioned about the teacher thinking, well, I've planned my learning, the learning that I've been told to plan in the way that I've been told to plan it. I don't think the lesson went particularly well, but I've done my job. But then you have school management, maybe, possibly not looking on that in the same view as failing a little bit less each day, but actually as failure. And then the things that emerge from that. I mean, we at the school that we've both worked at, there was a process introduced to try and get teachers to comply with I'm not even sure it was actually defined what they should comply with, but there needed to be some improvement. It was a very algorithmic type process. I think we're both aware of it, and it didn't really kind of develop into anything productive. In fact, I'm pretty sure that those people under that scheme all left, or most of them left, within a couple of years of going through such a process. So yeah, I think you're right. Is there anything else you want to say to conclude on this?
Well, I mean, I guess it's just that it's that point really about you can't go wrong if you're listening and attending to the children. And our gaze and our first principle really has to be what the children are doing, how they're doing it, whether they're challenged by it, and what that therefore means about how I am teaching. I guess we've got to do whatever we can to enable teachers to do that and remove the things that get in the way of that. And for me, that's the most important thing to do in thinking about emergence. Have a look at the posts though there's about 4 in there at the moment, each with different scenarios about emergence and why it is important. But it's so fundamental that sort of theme does sort of run all through the other posts in the other sort of categories as well.
It does, yes. Yeah, but one of the main themes on the website is emergent practice.
Yeah.
And the value it does describe that exactly as you've described. Very good. Okay, well, our next podcast will be on the topic of of choices that I've made in education. So that'll be the third one that comes up shortly. So
okay, until then.
So yeah, thank you
Take
very
care.
much.
Bye for now.